the room with us. So we've started a live stream as well, which means if you're watching on Facebook or on YouTube, it actually starts sometimes before the sign, but yeah, we're streaming live to Facebook and YouTube. So should you watch there, don't be surprised that sometimes I address people in the room because there are a few people with us in the room here. And but we'll still watch your comments carefully as well. So if you're on Facebook or on YouTube, if you have questions and you post that under the video, we'll include that as best as we can into the session as well. If you're with us in the room, welcome everyone. Yay, Ulrika, hey. Then it would be great to know where you are right now. So if you want to either share that in the chat with us or even put it behind your name like I did, and Jamie, and so did Steve, where we're based in the world, because we all kind of live in different parts of the world, and that can be telling. Jamie is in sunny Italy, while I'm in cloudy Thailand, and Steve's in Brighton. I don't know what the weather's like there. Showing, ooh, sunny, wow, okay, right. All this has an impact on us, right? On our embodiment and possibly even how you will perceive this session. So that's why it's nice to know for us, because depending on whether it's early morning for you, late at night, or if the weather is beautiful or not so beautiful, it really affects the mood and everything else. So thank you for sharing that. I got Croatia, the Netherlands, the UK with us here in the room. Nice, good to see you. Finland as well. Great, welcome. Also, who of you has already been to a session or multiple ones? Maybe you give me a wave. Yeah, okay. Some of you haven't. That's fine too. Totally fine. You're an EYP virgin for this masterclass series. Totally fine. So yeah, you might already have a good idea of what EYP is, got a flavor of it, and it can be used in 3 different ways. So I'm curious to know, out of you in the room here, who is interested in the side of the personal development, who's here as a coach, or who's here as a yoga teacher. Maybe you want to share that in the chat with us, and then we'll dive right in as well, because we're on the hour. So curious to read who's with us in the room. So also up front, so welcome to yet another EYP masterclass with us here. My name's Christina. I'm also an EYP teacher, but I'm hosting mostly on this series. So today with us is Jamie, and I'll introduce her shortly. Jamie is one of our more senior EYP teachers as well. And as I just asked, EYP, Embodied Yoga Principles, those of you who have been here know that can be used and approached from various angles. The main point being it's all about the transfer to daily life, and it's about the insights we can gain and the changes we can make happen and aid that process through the body and the entire kind of body-mind in union. So I've just asked you in the room with me if you are either here for personal insights as a coach or as a yoga teacher, because these are the 3 areas that we cover as well in the trainings we offer. When we have 3 versions of the EYP teacher training or training, a course, and they focus on these different areas. And just doing it for personal insight is totally amazing to do, and that would be the light version. If you want to dive deeper as well, that I recommend checking out that course, and Steve will be so kind to post that here. It can reveal so much about your patterns. I've learned so much about myself. If you're here for like wanting to integrate it into your own yoga practice, or even wanting to teach it in a yoga context, we also have a training for that will give you a few more insights on how to create a flow, how to bring it into the class in terms of the rhythm of the class. And there will be community calls and check-ins, and the community is really rich with various teachers that then help give you a better understanding of the entire system as well. And we currently have a competition happening too. If you tag one of your friends on Facebook, you can win one of these teacher trainings. So don't miss that opportunity. And then there's the 3rd area, which for me is one of the major ways I use EYP at the moment, is in coaching. So in my coaching practice, it's a phenomenal tool to gain insights and bring people really through the body into deeper understanding of their own patterns, and then also help them maybe address that and change that. And there's an entire course for that as well that looks at how that can be done. And our wonderful, beautiful Jamie has recorded a video that we'll briefly show as well to give you a flavor of what that looks like, EYP and coaching.
What the EYP course for coaches has to offer you is a way to shift things from getting stuck in the head and getting into the body. These very simple forms can be done in normal clothing, in any setting, anywhere, and you can then begin to look at the patterns that might be keeping your clients stuck. As a coach, I use this mostly with my clients with intimacy and relationship and communication, and as soon as I get them to move from the cerebral part of the conversation and getting them down and into their body.
See yourself as you see other people, because I have a very critical eye at the moment.
So when you sign up, there's plenty of support available to you. We have a private Facebook group that you are welcome to join. We have monthly Q&A calls, so you get a lot of ideas of how other people are using the same things.
Thank you, Steve, for sharing that. Thanks for your tech support and wizardry in the background. Without you, we wouldn't be able to post everything on time anyway. All right, so today's session, or this particular session, because we have more coming up today still, is about taking a stand, or stand pose. And a stand pose can be used in various ways, but it's really about that sort of sense of, I think Jamie will explain the details of that more. So let me introduce Jamie to you though, because that I'd love to do. So as I said, Jamie is one of our more senior EYP yoga teachers. She's also an intimacy coach, and she therefore uses a lot of these postures in her coaching work as well. And she especially focuses on inspiring aliveness in relationships through honest communication and deep sort of curiosity and playful somatic inquiries. And some of that might very well include these poses too. And I'll let you take over here, Jamie.
Thank you, Christina. Thank you, Steve. It's lovely to be here again and seeing some of these familiar faces, because I've been doing several of these poses over the week. And so, yes, it's lovely seeing the familiar faces here in the Zoom room. Sorry about the people on live stream. You're beautiful too, and I'm glad you're here as well. But it's especially nice to see those here in the Zoom room. It gives a nice feeling here. So I guess before I dive into stand, I just want to set a container for today's practice for the next hour. And I'm sure you're hearing this said in each of the sessions, but for those, if this is your first session, please remember that everything I'm sharing here is an invitation. Everything here is a genuine choice. And as we're all adults here, I'm also going to leave it to you to care for yourself, both physically, taking care of yourself in whatever physical way that you need, but also emotionally. So, using the inquiries with emotional intelligence and kindness towards yourself. The thing with EYP is that it can go deep very quickly, especially, if there are insights that are ripe for the picking. So please do take care of yourself physically and emotionally as we go through. So with that being said, let's get into the juicy stuff. Let's get into stand. And I think the title of the session was Be Unapologetically Clear. I would love to know, what does that mean to you? So if you want to type into the chat, what does that mean to you to be a stand? What does that mean? And as you're typing that into the chat, maybe can you recall a time in your life where you had to take a stand for something? And whether this time in your life, whether it was a conscious and deliberate decision, or did it happen by circumstance? And what I mean by that is, I don't know, were you out and you saw an elderly person being harassed and you had to step in because you're not going to allow an elderly person to be harassed? It's something that you care about. So, just recalling, bringing up these moments in time for yourself in your life where where have you had to take a stand? Maybe it was, with an ex-partner around childcare arrangements. Maybe it was with a school for your kids. Maybe it was in the workplace. But we're going to go through these different arenas of our life, both for our personal, from a coaching perspective, and then also how you might be able to incorporate this into like a yoga or group session. But I'm really curious about this, where this is kind of maybe shown up for you. And as you're drawing these things back into your memory or recalling these things, how has what you stand for changed? So has it evolved and grown as you've evolved and grown as a person, or what you stood for 20 years ago is still what you're stand for today? And there will probably be an overlap, or some of the things that you were stand for when you were quite young, and maybe now you're middle-aged or even beyond middle age, you're still a stand for. So just kind of I want you to begin feeling into these things. And I know I'm taking you into the head first, and that's okay. We're going to go into the head, and then we're going to drop down into the body to see what we're actually a stand for. But just so we can start having those swirl over, I'm just going to pull up the chat to see what's been shared. So we have, what does it mean? Clear boundaries, respect myself and clearly say what I think, feel by respecting the other. Great. Honest, confident, that you're also clear with yourself. So yeah, being a stand, I don't know if it's often talked about, but being a stand is also about our boundaries. A lot of EYP forms, all of these postures can come back to boundaries. So anyone who's working with boundaries or a lack of boundaries, most of these poses can be used and turned and flipped and inquired in that way. Showing up for yourself, resilience, stand for your values, making your boundaries clear in a kind way, and be respectful for others in the same way. Sometimes I'm going to challenge that though. Sometimes being a stand might not be respectful for others. And we'll come to that towards the end of the session about how sometimes we're a stand for things and other people don't agree, whether it's culturally or even in our own families. So we'll come to that towards the end. I do have a practice for that. Okay, so in live stream, stand my ground against bullying. Great. Standing by my principles in face of opposition. Specific example was when a friend at work was being treated badly at work. Great. Saying no. Protecting a deer from being injured by a dog. Personal relationships and work-related meetings, taking a stand without flinching away. Flight, and without letting it spin into an argument fight. Great. These are all really great ways that you can already see how you're standing, or how you take a stand and where you are today in your life. Fantastic. Being brave. Yes. Oftentimes when we take a stand, it is about being brave. That's right. Stand for someone being misunderstood at work. Yeah. Okay. Okay. So I'm going to come back to those in a minute. Let's actually get us into stand. So as I said, taking a stand. So right now we're going to do a personal piece. This is for your personal everyday. So, and I say it's for personal everyday. All of this can be used in coaching, and all of this can be used in a yoga class. They can all really be blended one into another. But this specifically, we're going to look at it from a personal everyday point of view. And from a personal everyday point of view, what are you a stand for? What are you committed to? What are you committed to for yourself? And I love this Joseph Campbell quote. And he says, if you can see your path laid out in front of you, step by step, you know it's not your path. Your own path, you make every step you take. That's why it's your path. And taking a stand is a little bit like that for me. It's like, if it's clearly laid out, I know it's not mine. I definitely know it's not mine. Okay, so let's get into our body. So go ahead and come up to standing if you're not already. And this one is nice because you don't need a lot of space for this one. You don't need a lot of space. You just have to be able to stand. And you can do this from sitting too, but I'm going to demo this one from standing. So standing, if you look down at your feet, and I'm not actually going to show you my feet because I'm wearing my partner's Crocs because that's how cool I am right now. But you want your feet just underneath your hips. So you want your feet just underneath your hips. Okay, so about hip width distance. And you want to be able to feel the whole foot, each of your feet firmly on the floor. So hopefully you're somewhere flat. And then I want you to imagine that here at the crown of your head that you have a string, and that string is pulling and lengthening, stacking all of your vertebrae one on top of the other, making you the tallest version of yourself that you've ever been right now. Have the chin parallel to the floor. Arms down by your side. I will point my camera down a little bit, so sorry if the moving the camera is a bit weird for people. Arms are going to be straight down by your side, and I want your fingers to be active. So the fingers are going to be pointing down. Let me point it down a little bit more so you can see. Just don't look at my shoes, please. Okay, fingers pointing straight down. So the fingers are active. So they're not, the fists aren't clenched, fingers aren't together, but they're sort of separated enough like this, but fingers are going to energetically pull down towards the ground, okay? And then here, I want you to watch, and I know you can't see my head, but that's okay. From here, I want you to watch that you're not arching. The yoga people in the room might want to arch. Instead, you want to have the spine nice and upright. So you're not back, you're not rounded, but you're in that neutral place, okay? All right. So that's the basic setup for stand. Basic setup. So arms are active. All right. So first things first, eyes are open. Sometimes we want to close our eyes. Sometimes we're scared about what we're standing for. So eyes are open. They're bright. They're looking forward. Mouth is relaxed. So now here, first notice your body. Notice what it is to be standing upright, being the tallest version of yourself, just noticing that first. Maybe notice how the breath moves through the body, or notice where it's not moving in the body. And as you stand here, I'm going to ask you in your first language, it doesn't matter because you're all on mute, I'm the only one who's not muted. In your first language, say a sentence or a few words about what you're a stand for. So for example, I'm going to make some up and you can tell if I'm lying or not, and I'll come to that in a moment. Okay. So when you're ready to say what you're a stand for, I'm a stand for my children. I'm a stand for healthy living. I'm a stand for taking care of nature. And as you're saying what you're a stand for, just noticing what's happening in your body as you're saying it, if anything. And the things that I want you to notice are, does the body go rigid? Do you soften? Does the body want to release? Does it want to collapse? Do you feel more upright? Does what you say cause tension in the throat? Okay, so I want you to release your stand. Give yourself a shake. It might not feel that different to normal standing, but give yourself a shake. And so these are the things I want you to listen for as you're doing your stand. This is what I want you to listen for, because I'm going to invite you to practice again. So the words that we say that we're a stand for matter. And sometimes it's just a small tweak. So for example, I could say, I'm a stand for my children, which I really clearly am a stand for my children. However, that might not be what's most alive for me right now. Maybe I'm a stand for clean water, everyone having clean access to water. So noticing how, if the phrase you're using, if it's right, and if tweaking one word or multiple words makes it actually clearer and stronger for you in your body. And some telltale signs for you are, what happened with your voice? Did the voice go up? Did it go down? Or were you able to say it in a very direct way? Almost emotionless. I know that sounds kind of crazy, but almost without it kind of that high pitched, I'm saying this out of fear, I think I'm a stand for, or dropping down too much like, oh, I think I'm a stand for. So you see the difference. It's not up, it's not down, it's clear and straight. So I want you to notice that for yourself, your own voice. Unfortunately, I can't hear everybody in a class setting. It would be much easier to kind of say, hey, maybe that word needs to be tweaked, but we'll come to homework in a moment. or home play. That's a funner way to say it. So first, noticing your voice. That was job number 1. Number 2, what happens in your face? So this is really good here. And you might not even know, but when you said it, did your eyebrows raise? Because if your eyebrows raise or they scrunch, it's either coming from fear and anxiety or worry, but it's not actually quite balanced. Were you able to keep a straight face? So notice your eyebrows. Your eyebrows tell a lot. Okay. So let's play with those 2 things before we add anything else. So come back to being a stand wherever you are. So go ahead. And again, you can do this from sitting. You can just sit nice and upright. That's fine too if you want to sit, but come to your stand. And first and foremost, in any of the EYP forms that you're going to do over this week is to feel your feet and notice your body. Just noticing your body first. Noticing what's happening in your body as you come into the form. So again, feet are rooted to the ground beneath you. Arms are active. Spine is nice and long and upright. And the gaze, again, the gaze is important. The gaze is forward. And now I'm going to invite you again in your first language to say what you're a stand for. And again, nice, clear voice. And notice if your voice went up or down. And if it did one of those 2 things, can you change the word? Can you change the phrase? Maybe that's not what you're a stand for right now. Maybe it's something else. You know, maybe it's not worrying about the health crisis in the world, or maybe it's not your kids today. Maybe it's not your work project. Okay. So I'm going to ask you to say it one more time, whatever it is that you're a stand for. And after you've said what you're a stand for, do you believe yourself? Do you feel legitimate in what you're saying? You know, because I can say all sorts of things that I'm a stand for, and I can call myself out. Actually, that's yeah, I believe in that, but I'm not a stand for that today, or I'm not a stand for that right now. So do you believe yourself? All right, go ahead, break off, give yourself a little shake out. Okay. So like I said, for personal every day, this is a moment for you all to begin figuring out what's important for yourself. You know, first figuring out where you are, what's important for you. So if you feel so inclined, please feel free to put into the chat what you're a stand for. And I'll read some of those things, and maybe I'll give some feedback on, because being specific, and those who've seen me on any of these other calls, specificity is important. When we're not specific, it's too vague and too fluffy, and it might never happen. And that's kind of how vague makes me feel. So being really specific. So I might give some suggestions on how you might be able to make that a little more specific, and then you can try it out. You can say it. You can see if it's true for you. So type in the chat what you're a stand for. I'd love to see what we've got in the room. And then as home play for you, for your personal practice, can you name one person that you trust that you can practice this with? So one person that you know will call you out on your BS, one person you know that will be honest with you, to stand in front of them and to say what you're a stand for. And then have them give you that feedback of, actually, your voice was too high, you tilted forward, you leaned back, noticing those subtleties so you can refine what you're actually a stand for. And of course, if there's someone that you don't feel comfortable with, or you can practice this in a mirror. So if you do this in a mirror, you can do the same thing. You can say what you stand for and watch yourself, watch your eyebrows, watch your own subtle body language, watch if you fold in on yourself, watch if you light up, and see that for yourself. And then maybe take it to that trusted friend and say, hey, I really want to try something. Are you willing to help me? Okay, so I'm just going to see what we have in the chat. I want to see what we have stands for. Okay. Truth and integrity, to be soft. So truth and integrity, again, being really specific. Truth in what? Integrity in what? In communication, in where specifically, and you don't have to answer that for me. That might be something that you take away and do, but truth and integrity, be specific where you want to see that truth and integrity. To be soft, again, same thing, to be soft with your partner, to be soft at work, to be soft as you lay in the grass, being really specific. I stand for what I feel. Again, great, but you can also tweak that. Stand for what you feel when, in every moment. Stand for what you feel just in the morning. Like where do you want to see that? Yourself, great. I'm standing for compassion with all parts in an IFS sense. I don't know what IFS sense is, but that sounds great. It sounds like you were very specific there. Freedom and safety. Again, freedom and safety where and with who? Is it for yourself? Is it for others? And I'm not trying to be mean and say that none of these things are great. They're all great things. I just want to help you get really specific, because that's where it's gonna land in your body, and that's where you're gonna have that congruence. Again, any of you who've watched any of my other sessions, I talk about this congruence, having our body being congruence with what's coming out of our mouth, because people feel it. Even if they don't say it, they feel it. Animals feel it. Children feel it. They all feel it. I stand for harmony. I stand for mental health, saying no and limits on non-fear of confront or conflict if need be. I'm a stand for my self-worth. I am standing up for person I know, not naming, great. I stand for people to be free to choose to live the lives they love. Great. These are all really great. Beautiful things to be a stand for. And you know what? One of the very first times that I did stand, I actually said I was a stand for myself, and that felt really hard. That felt like how that's selfish. How could I possibly, out of all the things in my world and in my life, how could I be a stand for myself? And I had to really unpick that. So anyone who's saying things for themselves, beautiful, and that's not selfish, because again, that was my experience. So I just wanted to throw that in there. Okay, so let's roll on being a stand, and let's move to what it would be like if you're a coach, because I know we have some coaches in the room. And the thing with EYP and coaches, it's, as you saw in that little video of me, you do get a lot of bang for your buck. When you can get people out of their head and into their bodies, they can often get a deeper insight or a bigger learning, because the body has an inability to lie like the mind or the brain. That we've got these monkey brains that tell all kinds of stories, and the body doesn't tell stories that way, not in the same way. So if you have clients who are unclear or floppy, and by floppy, they're just kind of like, I don't know what I'm doing with myself, like that kind of feel. We've all had clients who've been a bit like that, right? Or if they need help redefining their goals, and to redefine your goals by understanding what you really care about, you're going to have a bigger impact on achieving those goals. Because if you're just making goals because you think that's what you should have, or you're not really aligned with it, you're not going to have as big of an impact, right? So when a client gets anchored into their desire, when it's anchored through their body, the goals become attainable. And some simple things you can begin working with your clients are, what are your values? When you take a stand, it's really showing what your values are. What will you take a stand for? I saw in the chat earlier, people were talking about, when a work colleague was being treated poorly, so it shows up in work environments a lot. And some kind of examples where you might be able to use, and by the way, this list is not exhaustive, is, so say you have a client who wants to bring a new work policy in, like a new work policy around like paid paternity leave. That's a kind of a novel idea, especially for the American crew. So paid paternity, not maternity, but paternity leave. Or what about more flexible working hours for the people in the office who menstruate? Those would be kind of a big deal things. Or what about a client who feels that a working condition is unfair? Or a client who has someone bullying them or others in the workplace, which, I think showed up in the chat earlier. Or it can simply be something a client wants to know what truly lights them up. What truly lights them up. It can be something as simple as that. So those are some coaching ways that, coaching examples. So let's feel for ourselves. Let's feel for ourselves what we're stand for when it comes to maybe a working environment or a working relationship. So if you want to think of maybe something that's work related, that would be helpful in this context. And we're going to use taking a stand as our litmus test of how rock solid are we. Okay, so how rock solid are we? And for this one, if you have a chair handy, I'm going to do this variation in a chair. So if you have a chair, grab a chair. If you don't have a chair, don't worry about it. You can do it from the floor, or you can just do it from standing, and you can try from a chair later. Let me pull my handy chair in. Okay, so I'm going to tilt my camera down, have a seat. So if you're in a chair, take a seat. If you're not, again, you can just, come to standing, or you can do from, if you're really quite nimble, you can go from cross-legged on the floor up to standing. You choose your adventure. Okay. So here we're sat, and when it comes to what you're a stand for, I want you to really call something to the forefront, again. And if you don't have a work related one, that's fine, but if you do, it's gonna feel better. So maybe just simply as, what truly lights you up? I can use that one for everybody here. What lights you up? So really take a moment, take a couple breaths, and really feel into what lights you up. And it can be something as simple as, I've got these really beautiful roses. These roses right here really light me up. It can be something as simple as, I'm really lit up when I put a smile on X, Y, and Z's face. So really feeling into what lights you up. Okay, so once you have that, what lights you up, I want you to come up to standing and come into stand. So come straight from sitting up into stand. And notice what happened for you when you came up to standing. Notice what came up for you when you came up to standing. Okay, so I'm going to invite you to do that again. I'm going to have you come sit down. We're going to practice this a few times. So come sit down. Okay, so now this time, again, calling into your space and into your body what you're a stand for, or what lights you up. Okay, so either way, can be used either way. And I'm going to invite you here to take a nice breath in through the nose. Take a full exhalation through the nose. And then the next time you inhale, come straight up to standing, and then say what you're a stand for. And as you come up to what you're a stand for and you say it out loud, I want you to notice first, how quickly did you come up to standing? Or were you slow to get up? Notice where your weight is. Did you come forward? Did coming from sitting change where your stand is? How rock solid did you feel when you came up, when you actually took a stand? Okay, let's try it again. So go ahead, come down to sitting. Is there anyone here willing to unmute themselves and do it for the group? Is there anyone who wants to put themselves forward and be witnessed in what they're a stand for? And if so, you can give a little hand raise. If not, don't worry, and we can unmute you. Is anyone willing to say what you're a stand for? Okay. No takers. Maybe you want to practice in the mirror first for a little while. Okay, so go ahead, come back down to sitting. All right. So once again, feeling your feet first. And I find that by sitting on the edge of my chair, so I'm not leaned back in my chair, I'm sitting on the edge of my chair. So connecting your feet to the floor. And already begin taking your gaze forward, already like your focus is there. Your focus is there. That's what you're a stand for. It's right there. And then when you're ready, inhale, stand up, and on the exhalation, say what you're a stand for. Say it in your first language. And with each iteration, are you feeling a little more solid? Are you feeling a little more solid in what you're a stand for? So it'd be great if you give a thumbs up or a medium or a thumb down. So just so I have an idea of where this is landing for you. Are you feeling more solid each time you stand up? Okay, good. I'm seeing some thumbs up. Great. And I'm also curious, as each time you stand up, are you saying the same thing or are you changing the words slightly because the words matter? So just out of curiosity, are you changing the words or are you saying the same thing? So if you're saying the same things, give me a thumbs up. Okay. And if you're, go ahead and put your thumbs down. And if you're, that was saying the same thing. I asked that one first, right? I lost my train of thought. Okay. So now if you're changing the words, I'd be curious, who's changing the words? Give me a thumbs up. Great. It's fantastic. You're refining. Let's try it one more time and let's see if we can really wire it in. So go ahead, take your seat. Take your seat. And again, start with the feet. The feet are your foundation. Okay. So with your feet as a foundation, when you're ready, take a big breath in, stand up, and say what you're a stand for. What are you a stand for? Say it loud, clear. Notice your voice, the intonation. And just standing there for a few moments to really allow that to anchor into your body. And if you want to say it again, now that you're standing, say it again. What are you a stand for? Great. And then when you're ready, give yourself a shake and you can take a moment, you can sit down, you can relax, you can remain standing if you want. And I've just seen in the chat, I'm struggling because I lost my job and I was really standing for it. So it feels complicated. I can understand that. And that's really, not that it's great you lost your job. That's, I'm really sorry to hear that. And you can look at what it was as a part of your job that you were a stand for. What was it that you were doing? What was it that made you feel so aligned with it? So maybe, yes, it was, the job because those are the things we're doing, but it's those things. It's those things that you were a stand for. And that's a really beautiful way to look at, okay, so I'm a stand for these things. It used to be a part of this job, but I'm still a stand for these things. Okay. All right, so before we shift gears once again, I want you to take a moment here and what would help you add clarity or sturdiness to what you're a stand for? So, you stood up, how rock solid were you? What do you need to feel even more sturdy? So what do you need to feel even more sturdy in what you're a stand for? That might mean, talking to a colleague, speaking to a mentor. It might mean taking up a different kind of hobby. It might mean cooking food in a different way. So what do you need that's going to make you feel more sturdy in what you're a stand for? And be specific. So again, the more specific you are, the more able you're going to be able to transfer that and actually achieve it. Because if we're just kind of like, well, I kind of think doesn't always happen. Okay, so let me just pull up the chat again here. I stand for all who are not respected and listened to. They're not valued. I stand for that. Beautiful. Being clear in communication. Fantastic, Mags. Great. Anywhere else? What do you need to feel even more sturdy? What would support you? What would support you in being that stand? And again, if you don't have an answer for that right now, that's okay. Just write down the question and come back to it later. So you can write it down and inquire about it later, because it might not be immediately obvious to you. It might not be immediately obvious. Okay. So now we're going to take a look at, we're going to shift a little bit, and we're going to shift at how you could possibly use this in a group setting or in a yoga class, for example. And this, by the way, if you do group coaching, this is great for group coaching, this one. And the next way we're going to explore it, I have done this online before, but it's even more powerful in person. So if you're lucky enough to be doing in-person stuff, this is wonderful for in-person stuff. So I think a lot of us are probably aware of how social witnessing plays a significant role in holding us accountable, whether that's to a goal or simply a belief. So, I mean, I don't know how many of you have ever, maybe changed the way you eat. Maybe you change something, maybe you're not eating dairy anymore, and you tell your family, and the moment that you have a piece of dairy, your family is the first to tell you, hey, I thought you said you weren't eating dairy anymore. So it's the same. Social witnessing really holds us to this. And the reason I'm bringing social witnessing into this is because there are often going to be times in our life when we are a stand for something that goes counter to friends, family, culture, society. And how can we remain a stand for whatever it is and be unshakable? So that's the hard part, because, culture, family, even religion, if we're a stand for something that goes against those things, it can be really complicated. It can be really hard. So how can we become a stand, remain that stand, remain unshakable, even if we're alone? Even if we're alone, oftentimes we are alone in what we stand for, or we feel quite alone in what we stand for. And we're going to play with building this muscle. We're going to play with building this muscle of standing for what it is that we're stand for alone. Okay. And yoga does this quite well. It can do this quite well from the point of view that you go to a yoga class, and in a yoga class, you're in a safe room, a safe space. You do these breathing exercises, you do this mindfulness stuff. It's all these wonderful things that you can integrate into your everyday life. You do it in a safe place. So that way, when you go out into the real world, when the person in front of you at the, in the queue at the grocery store is pissing you off, you can call on your deep breathing. You can slow yourself down. And I think, Christina, you might have something to say on this from the point of view of martial arts. Okay, so Christina is our martial arts lady over here, that you wire these practices in the dojo, and you wire it in. And then when you're out in the real world, it's natural, it's instinct. If someone came up and tried to strangle Christina, she wouldn't have to think about what to do. She would know. So Christina, I don't know, is being a real life martial arts woman, can you speak to that, about that wiring in and that practice, and then how it goes out into the real world?
Yes, I can. Not that I have a movie-like karate kick up my sleeve, but my practice was very much Aikido towards the end, especially. But I found that having done it as a child, and then also for another 12, 13 years after that, it anchored in my body, and certain principles got anchored so deeply in my system that one day my friend jokingly was like, so what if I would do this now? And went towards me to push me, and all I did was respond in that sort of adjustment that I had practiced so often of letting it pass, stepping out of the way. And he just landed on his face, and he looked up at me and was like, what the heck did you just do? And I mean, this is something that you can't think. This is then becoming a reflex. And the more often you practice something and it becomes your go-to default, the easier and quicker it happens. Yeah.
Thank you, Christina. And so we're going to use this time now to begin building this muscle. And this is a way that if you're, again, doing group coaching or teaching yoga classes, you can help people begin building this muscle. Okay. So we're going to try this. And if this feels too much for you, then please take care of your emotional well-being. Okay. So go ahead, bring yourself up to standing. Okay. So the way I'm going to invite you to do this one is to turn your back to the camera. Turn your back to the camera so you are now alone in the room. And again, if that doesn't feel good for you for whatever reason, you don't have to. So I'm going to invite you to turn your back to the room. You've turned your back to us. You are now alone. Now come into stand. So feel your feet firmly on the ground. Lengthen that spine, become the tallest version of yourself. Activate through your fingertips. Take a solid breath in. And as you take that solid breath in and feel your feet on the floor, I invite you to out loud say what you're a stand for. And again, take a solid breath in, say what you're a stand for again. You're standing alone in this, whatever it is. Okay. So go ahead, shake yourself out. You can turn back towards the camera. So we're gonna try this again with a little twist. But before we try it again with a little twist, because I always have a little twist up my sleeve, in the chat, what was that like to turn your back and say what you're a stand for? Again, we're imitating what it's like to be in the real world, saying what we're a stand for. We're all here together. There's lots of people here, but yet you're turning your back. So in the chat, what was that like? Did that in some ways feel easier? You know, did it feel easier in some ways? Because then it's like, you know what? It's kind of like that FU vibe. You know what? I'm going to be a stand for this, regardless if I'm the black sheep, etc. I'm just going to pull up the chat so I can see what you guys and gals are saying. Felt solid. It was easier, familiar. Great noticing the familiarity. I felt centered and strong. Okay. I question if I felt it honestly. That's great. That's a great inquiry. And the reason I'm saying that is because when we turn away from the group, when we turn away and we're feeling that aloneness, it does give us that moment of, is this what I'm really a stand for? Is this what I'm really about? And maybe it is, or maybe it's not, but it's still that great place of which way am I going with it? Got emotional as I know that I have support behind me. People have my back. Beautiful. The words were more jumbled. It felt easier when I thought I was being seen. Wow. So strengthen in being seen. So let's try this with a little twist. So if anyone was with me on Monday, we did authority. And if you haven't done authority, don't worry, I'm going to take you through authority. So we're going to go from stand into authority, because oftentimes it's like we're standing for something. And then if we can stand in that power and feel our authority in it, it completely changes it. Completely changes our dynamic to it. So we're going to go from stand to authority. So just a quick recap on authority, so you know what authority is. I'm going to step, so I've got my chair in the way, just a second. Okay, so a quick recap on authority. Authority is you separate your feet hip width distance. I'm just taking you through the motions of this and we can do it properly in a moment. Hip width distance, and then you step one leg forward, 60% of your weight onto that front knee, hands onto the heart, because this is what we care about. We're going to come from this place of this is what I care about. And then you bring your arms straight out, palms. I'll step back so you can see my palms. Palms are going to face down, fingertips are together. And watch that they're not raised straight up towards the ceiling. They're more out. Okay, so there's kind of, I like to say sort of at the bottom of my ear level. So that's a quick gist of authority, okay? So what we're going to do is I'm going to again have you turn yourselves round, and you're going to go from stand to authority, back to stand. Okay, don't worry, I'll guide you through it. I just wanted to give you the visual of it. So again, I'll show you once again. We're going to go from stand to authority, back to stand. Okay. All right. So with that in mind, go ahead. If you're feeling ready, turn yourselves around, show me your backs, show me your backsides. That would seem really inappropriate in any other kind of setting, but turn yourselves around. Okay. So first, coming to your stand, feeling your feet, fingers active, spine long, gaze forward. Take a full breath in, and on your exhalation, say what you're a stand for. Once you've said what you're a stand for, step forward, hands onto your heart, and bring yourself to authority. Great. And then step back to stand and say what you're a stand for once again. Okay, we're going to do that one more time through just to kind of help you get that into your body and maybe get you even clearer on what it is you're a stand for. So once again, feel your feet, come firmly into your stand. Take a big breath in, and on that exhalation, say what you're a stand for. Once you've said what you're a stand for, hands onto your heart, step yourself forward, bring yourself into authority. Fingertips together on those guys and gals. And then step back to stand. And once again, say what you're a stand for. And then when you're ready to rejoin, you can turn yourself around. And give yourself a shake, a little wiggle, a move out. Go crazy. All right. Let's talk about that. What happened? What happened in the room? How did that change the dynamic? I'd love to know how that changed the dynamic for you. Let me just. Okay, so I just had a question about where you could use this in a yoga class. You could use this from any sun salutation variation. EYP fits into any sun salutation variation. You could throw it in, I would say throw it in the middle of a class, because you don't want to be doing something that can be quite deep and profound, especially if you're using an inquiry like that in the middle of a class, not at the very end of the go or end of a class. So what was that like for you? What was that like? Did that feel stronger? Did it feel more powerful, less powerful? I'm just going to check in the chat here. So we've got, made me feel stronger, felt clearer and more powerful. With just the stand pose, I was getting somewhat too frontal fire in your face and authority tempered that needed. Okay. After authority, my stand became stronger, more solid. Great. Fantastic. It's amazing. You can put all these pieces together and create EYP flows. It's one of my favorite things to do. I love giving EYP flows for various things. I love it. I felt better in authority than in authority session. Great. And after the second time coming back from authority, I had a much firmer stand, calm and powerful. Wonderful. So you can begin to see how all of these poses, they work together. They complement each other. Felt more strong and embodied while saying what I stand for. That felt very empowering, all empowering, emotional, inspiring, felt more powerful. Good. We've got more power in the room. You guys are a stand. You're powerful, all knowing beings. Wonderful. Woo! Okay. I think I'm getting my cue that I have to begin winding up here. So as Christina is going to take us through our little wind up, or wind down, not wind up. That would be bad. Wind down. Please in the chat, I'd love to see your biggest insights, takeaways from the session. It's really helpful for me as a facilitator. And remember, group learning. This is all about group learning here. What was strong for you might resonate with somebody else or make them see and feel things in a completely different way. So please, in the chat, let me know your biggest insights and takeaways before I give you up to the beautiful, well, as I'm giving you over to the beautiful Christina.
Thank you, Jamie. Wow. wonderful class and tied in all the elements. I love how you show once again how entwined and connected all these poses are and how they complement each other as well. And like those of you who've attended the authority pose session, feeling in your own bodies how it differs when you do it in connection with the stand. And yeah, again, just to remind you that if you want to dive really deeply into this work, there are 26 of these poses and all of them have this granularity, and Jamie did a fabulous job presenting the stand today and diving into the various ways of how you can approach this, including the voice and all the different symptoms of that are shown to us when we are not aligned with the body, when our intention isn't aligned. And all this is something we'll share with you in this courses. So Steve will post the link to that once again, even if it's just doing it for yourself and you want to dive deeper into it and really have a very clearly structured course available for you. All the recordings of these masterclasses will be part of that as well. And then again, if you want to become creative and do what Jamie does, more or less, like actually do the yoga teacher training for the EYP system, then there's also that course available to you, which is a bit more comprehensive and has community calls, regular ones, has an entire kind of back of additional information. And yeah, and then Steve is also highlighting right now in the share the EYP for coaching. So if that was the part that intrigues you the most and you would like to explore that further, then consider signing up. And again, it needs to align with what you stand for, and it needs to align with whether that feels like something for you. So feel into that. The information are all available and out there. At the moment, we have special offers on. And I would personally say that the community is a wealth of knowledge, experience, wisdom in and of itself. And it's one of the most valuable and what is it, the word for it, beautiful parts also of attending or signing up for these courses in my own experience. And it's an ongoing learning journey, and these poses bring you deep. So as a closing, maybe also take care of yourself, take a rest, maybe some time away from the screen, maybe some time where you just like let whatever happened in this session sink and settle, and maybe journal whatever came up during the session as well, because yeah, we went pretty deep into values and the emotional quality of that, and sometimes it comes with a little delay that it might hit you. So that's my advice as well. And then last but not least, also,
I was going to say, Christina, just also, so if you did have any of those big insights, those big light bulb moments, to sit on it for at least 24 to 48 hours before making any irrational decisions about your life, and go and speak to someone that you trust and love, and that will care for you in it. So, you know, just that little warning there.
Great. Yeah, don't make any big life decisions straight after this. Let the insights settle. And also, I have a comment here in the chat that I'm just reading. It's the first pose that really had a strong resonance with her. I'm just going to leave it at that. And for me personally, also some of the poses are like, yeah, it's all right. But some of them will hit me straight across the face, and I can feel it throughout my whole body, whether that's like, ugh, I really hate this pose, or like, oh my God, where was this pose hiding? So there'll be one pose for all of you, I'm sure. So take the time to really check out the sessions, and yeah, share it with your friends if you feel like this is something valuable that you would like to share. Then please invite others to join. We definitely believe that we can change the world if we all become a bit more aware. And up next is no pose, or how to build firm boundaries. And that will be with me. And I'm excited, a bit nervous as well. It'll be my first session that I'm actually teaching and not hosting during this masterclass series. And I feel quite strongly, and I'm quite passionate about saying no and having boundaries, and kind of standing for that as well. It has a lot to do with taking a stand, but then also to affirm that. So if you will feel keen, join me at 12 or noon UK time, or whatever time that is in your time zone. And I'll be happy to share what I have to share.
We'll be the power duo. I'm hosting you, Christina, so you get us again at 12 o'clock, the two of us.
Yay. Oh, great. Nice. I'm happy to hear that. I forgot. Yay. Great. So the power trio, Steve will probably be with us again as well, right?
Yeah, the power trio right here.
Great. So unless I forgot anything, Steve, are we all good? Okay. I suggest that we take a breath all together, find a position to relax a little bit, and then take a deep inhale. For me, there was a sigh that wanted to come. Maybe one more before we close. Thank you, Jamie. Thanks,
Thank you,
Steve.
everybody.
And thanks everyone else for joining. See you soon.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sarah,
Okay.
thank you.